I'm Brian Van, sportbiketrackgear.com, and today we're going to install an Ohlins TTX GP rear shock on our 2015 Yamaha YZF-R1 STG project bike. Had our first ride at the racetrack. Rode it stock trim minus a pipe and some brake lines, the ABS elimination, just very minor stuff, okay? The stock suspension is without question very good, especially the fork. For me, the shock definitely left the most to be desired. Okay, we're going to be upgrading the suspension front and rear. I've been riding on the racetrack for a while and I get around okay, so for me the Ohlins stuff definitely performs at a higher level. That's what I'm used to, so that's what I want to go to. We're going to use 1.0 spring on the rear shock. We'll be using the same 1.0 springs in the front forks when we do that 30 mil kit install. Right now we're going to cover what does it take to install the rear shock on this motorcycle, right? The Ohlins kit come with some instructions, some settings, right, for the Ohlins shock. As you can see, this one has mechanical preload adjustment. And we'll give you a look at this bad boy. Adjustable length, of course. Rebound compression adjustments, and then we have our mechanical preload adjustment. Not really sure why. I don't know if it was a constraint with this motorcycle where they felt they weren't able to fit it in there, but you have to adjust this mechanically with the particular shock that Ohlins sent us for this. What do we need to do to install this bad boy? What kind of tools do we need if you haven't done this before? Okay, you need to be able to remove the rear tire. So we've got it up on a pit bull stand. You also need to be able to support the motorcycle, right? From something like the rear set's a rigid point so that when you have the tire on, you've got the shock off, that you're holding the motorcycle more from the frame. There's different ways to get around doing that. I've got a really nice set of pit bull jack stands here. They usually work very well right off of the rear sets. So odds are that's what we're going to do. So we need to get the rear tire off. That's going to allow us to move the swing arm around. This gives you a little more room to work around there. From there, common hand tools to get in here and loosen up the mounting bolts for the shock and the swing arm linkage here in the back. Typically, you have to loosen that up and or remove that in order to get the rear shock out. We're going to open up by removing our rear tire. Whole new tool that we're using here too, this pit bull pit crew tire wedge. Absolutely the coolest thing ever for tire changes. It makes getting this tire on and off super easy. Get this rear wheel off, get this out of our way, and then we're going to start working on those fasteners. Okay, I want to get all the fasteners for the shock all loosened up, ready to come off before I put the jack stands underneath the motorcycle to support it. All right, the wheel is out of the way. Now we're going to go ahead and use our hand tools that I've got over here and begin to disassemble. Okay, I'm going to go ahead now and start loosening up all of the fasteners that hold the shock on. I'm going to leave all the bolts in place. We'll go ahead and run all the nuts off for now to get this part started. Once I've got all this stuff loose, then we'll be in a position where we can support the motorcycle by the frame and begin actually getting the shock out of there. Once I've got the linkage off, I also like to lubricate the bearings that are in there. It's oftentimes from the factory, they don't really put enough lubrication on that suspension link. Anytime you have it out, it is a very good idea to lubricate it thoroughly. You know, most riders are not going to have this apart more than, say, once a season, right? And that's, if you're getting your suspension serviced on a regular basis, as you should, and let's be honest, not everybody even does that. So anytime you're in here, you're going to want to go ahead and take the time and the opportunity to lubricate any of those moving parts very nicely. Just a couple more here to do. Okay, this will get us started now. We'll be able to get the jack stands in here. Support the motorcycle. All the fasteners over there, move the tools over. You can use normal car jack stands if that's what you got. Personally, I prefer these. This is literally what these were designed for. Folding the foot pegs up and using the rigid part of the rear set. Normally we have raised rear sets on by now, but because of the fact this bike is so new, I haven't really found any available yet, so we're rolling dirty with the stock rear sets for now. Now I'm going to take the rear stand. This is where it does get a little tricky here. Using a work table, this is actually a little bit easier on the ground, and it's definitely easier when you have aftermarket rear sets with fixed pegs. Go ahead and take some pressure off the rear stand and start to get it onto those jack stands. Make sure they both stay in place, which is a little more challenging when you have those spring-loaded rear sets in there. Okay, so notice not just pulling the stand out right now. Okay, move that tire wedge, because we will use that stand to help us adjust the height, right, of this as we go through it. Now we're able to get in here and begin to slide the fasteners out. Keep track of how everything goes together. Make sure you take a good look at it. A great way to do that is to take a photo if you're unsure. Got one more bolt that we were not able to access as it was behind the dog bone. Get this one. There's the lower shock bolt. Is now out all of the way. Let's see if we can get the upper one too. Just can't quite get my fingers on it. Might need to grab it. Okay, I'm going to use a Phillips head screwdriver just to kind of get in here and put a little pressure on that bolt. Slide that bad boy out of there. Out it comes. Now we'll see how much more we do or do not need to do to get this shock out. This, if we get lucky, this could be a really easy one. Or it could end up being a really difficult one. Seeing this stuff go either way. Okay, get my stand back in here and move the swing arm around a little bit. Reposition this dog bone at all. I don't know that I'm going to be able to, one of the bolts I was unable to push out all the way, so let's see if I pull this upper one out of the bag on here. It's going to allow me to get the rest of the room that I require. Lower the swing arm back down again. Okay. Out of the way there. Get enough room. There we go. Just need to suspension light to slide out of there. It's captured in there in the frame a little bit. Lower the swing arm again. And that looks like that's going to be just enough. So sometimes with a little bit of patience and moving the shock around, you're able to get it to do what you want without completely disassembling everything. There is our stock unit. Okay, we're going to go ahead and put that to the side. I do want to have a look at this suspension link and see if I can get this out of here. See what it's going to take to get that out of here. And what we have here is it's running into one of the stock exhaust mounts right here, which is part of the kickstand assembly. And of course, I still have it on the motorcycle because this is still a street bike. I really do want to stick to lubricating that, so we're going to go ahead right now and I'm going to remove the kickstand so I can get that bolt off. I just have to get some different. Okay, got the tools that I need now to remove the kickstand, right? First thing we have to do is the shifter. You can see here the modification that I made to the stock shifter right here so that it's GP shift. Got a video on what it takes to do that too if you want to do that to your R1. Nice part about that is it doesn't cost any money. Shifter pivot, first thing to come out. It's going to allow us access right here. Kind of let that hang freely. Now we're going to break loose the bolts that hold on the kickstand assembly. These are usually pretty tight. Not too bad. I've also got some grease ready to lubricate our suspension link. If you still have a kickstand on your bike, it might not be a bad idea to just go ahead and remove the kickstand straight away. I kind of tried to get away without doing it and was not very successful, so it might not be a bad idea to just pull that right out of the way. If you've got a race bike and you've already got it off, you will have changed the rear sets to facilitate that. And there you have it. That's out of the way now. Now we're going to be able to get out this last bolt here. And from there, here. Okay, so now we're ready to get the suspension link out of here. Grab onto that bushing, slide it out, like so. I've got some really good grease here, Mobil 1 grease. Got a brand new clean rag, which I would say is an essential part of this. What you don't want to be doing is introducing grit and debris into this, okay? The idea is to prevent that and keep it super smooth throughout its life. You can see that there's definitely not a ton of grease in there. There's some areas where there is literally no grease. Okay, so we're gonna remedy that situation right now. Open up our tube of grease. I've got a little tool that I made here a long time ago from a Phillips screwdriver that I use for stuff just like this. You don't really need a ton. Right? I'm gonna put the grease on the tool, and then this will actually allow me to really kind of get it into the bearing, which is where you want it. Circle it around in there. You have just a little bit on your seal as well. Allow it to slide in and out easier. Now we'll remove this metal bushing. Same scenario down here. This isn't something that you have to do, but I think at the end of the day, if you're going to spend the money on the shock and spend the time on the job, you should spend the time lubricating the contact points as well. Okay, get that. Okay, wipe away excess here. And then we've got the one that is actually attached to a swing arm back here. Do that one up as good as we can. Yeah, definitely not a lot of grease in this bad boy. So I would say this right here was time well spent. And this is something you should do every time you find yourself back here. When I come back, we're going to begin putting the suspension link back in place. And we're going to get that shock. We're going to start by, I'm going to dip the shock into place, right? The length and everything is where I want it for right now. We may make adjustments to this. We can do that stuff when it's on the motorcycle. But we're going to begin by dipping this thing into place, and I'm going to slide the bolt at the upper mount through to hold it. I'm going to adjust the swing arm here a little bit. It's going to just give me a little more room to work with. I should be able to dip that bad boy pretty much right in there, especially with that suspension link out of the way. Now, when I started off, I was trying to save myself a couple of minutes there and not remove that kickstand, and you can see that that clearly didn't really go exactly the way that I planned. So if I were you, I would just start off and commit to removing that right from Jump Street. There's really no reason to hold off on that. That into position. Slide the bolt through. Just going to hold it there for us. It's going to allow me to get the dog bone all assembled up like so. All right, that is in there. We'll come over to the other side of the motorcycle. And we're going to begin sliding this bad boy into place. Go ahead and lower the rear stand again to get more room to work with here. Okay, slide that suspension link in there. Should be able to get the bushing to go through. I'm going to have to pick up a little bit now on this rear stand. Okay, I need that swing arm to go back up a little bit. So I can get this lined up. I'm going to go all the way up with it now. Get that bushing to push through. Like so. Goes all the way through. And now we can lower shock bolt. Now remember, this particular bolt we're going to need to tighten first because this is covered by those two dog bones. Right? So you're not going to have access to this moving forward. I'm going to go to the other side of the motorcycle. Get the ratchet on there. We'll use a backup wrench and we're going to tighten this permanently. These are locking nuts, okay? This is, I would say, something you never ever want to come loose. If you're not comfortable torquing bolts by hand without a torque wrench, I would strongly advise you to research the proper torque spec for this motorcycle, for this fasteners back here in the rear suspension, and torque them to specification. Okay, we got that one in place. Come back over to the other side now. We will push through the fastener that initially we weren't unable to access first, like so. And I come back here. I need to make some adjustments with our swing arm so that get this length correct. I will push that through, and once you get it in the right position, it literally will go right through. And use the axle block to just hold the rear stand kind of like the wheel chock right there. Back over to the other side now. Get the other half of the dog bone in. Excess grease was pushed through there. Wipe that off the fastener. Both fasteners, we lube that up pretty nicely. Okay. Dog bone is going to slide right over. Got locking nuts with washers I'm going to use here. Washer, nut. Just hand tight right now. And then we're going to have the fastener for the suspension link where it actually bolts to our frame. Slide that bolt through. Get that bad boy. In there. Okay. Okay, from this point, we are going to be done with the jack stands that are holding the motorcycle up. There was a little bit of pressure being put on them. You know, we raised it up and down, so I want to get these out of there as soon as possible, just to, you know, make sure that I've got this motorcycle supported safely. So we're going to go ahead and remove these from the equation right now before we begin torquing all of our fasteners. If I had fixed rear sets on here, a pair of race rear sets right now, I wouldn't be concerned about that at all. Okay, so now, when we come back, I'm going to have all of my fasteners tightened, ready to go. We're going to have our kickstand mounted back up, or shifter mounted back up. I'm probably going to grease up the pivot point for that shifter as well. And we'll throw the rear tire on and kind of tie this project up. All right, I'm going to close this up while I'm putting the rear tire on. Probably asking yourself, why does he want to show us this? This is really basic, easy stuff. Well, it's because I want to show off my Pit Crew tire wedge. Look at this thing. Holding my tire down there. No need to put my foot on. Dig it. Look at just rolling that up in there. That's what I'm talking about. My chain over. Very cool new tool from Pitbull. I used to hate putting these tires on when I was up on the work table. Absolutely hated it. Complained about it every time I did it. So, I got my new Pitbull stand accessory here. Makes getting the tire front or rear back on bike a whole lot easier. Okay, to recap, we've got our Ohlins shock on there. We're not completely done now. We're going to want to do a rider sag. I'm going to double check the settings that are in the shock, and we're going to start off at the recommended settings, right, from Ohlins. Then we need to get out there and ride that bad boy, right, and make sure that we get this thing handling as good as the last two bikes that we've done. The Honda from last year, that thing really was dialed in, right? The R1 from the year previous, that one was great. So we've made progress each year, and I'm hoping that that continues as I learn more and more about doing my own suspension. So, shock is on. Ready to ride there. We've got a steering damper from Ohlins to install. We have a 30 mil cartridge kit for the forks. That's on the way. I don't know that we're going to get that done before next ride. I'm hoping to get another ride in, possibly even this weekend with our friends at Sport Bike Track Time. We'll see if weather and time permit. But there you go. That's what it takes to install an Ohlins rear shock on a 2015 Yamaha YZF-R1.